Why is it that for thousands of years, across literally every single culture on Earth, humans have been so undeniably obsessed with understanding the divine? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack the anatomy of belief. It's a wildly fascinating journey that takes us from the very earliest humans trying to make sense of a terrifying natural world all the way to the deeply structured major world religions that shape our modern societies today. Just take a look at the sheer diversity of the iconography here. We're talking unseen forces, countless faces of enlightenment, the whole idea that brushing away the dust of sin can literally lead to a better life. You see, our ancestors didn't just sit back and accept the unknown. No, they built these vast, incredibly intricate frameworks to give it all meaning. It's a brilliant illustration of how we've historically created all these countless systems to explain life, death, and, well, the very structure of the cosmos itself. To make sense of all this, we've got a roadmap for today. We'll be looking at the dawn of human belief, checking out a timeline of world religions, diving into the elements of faith, exploring morals, society, and leadership, and finally tackling modern challenges and conflicts.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the dawn of human belief, exploring its prehistoric origins.
So imagine you're an early human, right? The weather, the shifting seasons, the very reality of death, these were absolutely terrifying, uncontrollable forces. Religion was a vital way to understand them. There's this ancient quote from Homer that hits the nail on the head. All men have need of the gods. From the absolute beginning, religion gave us a critical way to communicate with these unseen forces through things like ritual and prayer. But the main takeaway here isn't just about trying to control the rain or the harvest. These shared rituals were basically social superglue. They cemented early groups together, enforced early hierarchies, and gave nomadic tribes a deep shared identity.
Moving on to Section 2, a timeline of world religions, taking us from animism all the way to today.
Okay, so how on earth did we get from localized animism, where people literally believed a rock or a tree had its own spirit, to these massive global faiths? Let's trace the timeline. As societies leveled up into larger civilizations, their beliefs scaled right along with them. We see primal beliefs giving way to those classical pantheons around 3000 BCE in places like ancient Egypt and Babylon. And then, bam! Foundational, highly organized faiths start to emerge. You've got Judaism around 2000 BCE, Hinduism's early written traditions popping up by 1700 BCE, and then new paths like Buddhism offering an escape from suffering in the 6th century BCE.
And from there, the evolution really kicks into high gear as societies expand and bump into each other. We see the explosive growth of Christianity in the 1st century CE, followed closely by the origins of Islam in 610 CE. But here's the really crucial point to remember. Religion never actually stops adapting. Even jumping right up to the 15th century, we see the emergence of modern faiths like Sikhism. They adapt to entirely new social realities, all while still carrying that underlying spiritual DNA of the faiths that came before them.
That brings us to Section 3, the elements of faith, where we'll break down the dimensions of religion.
So, with so many totally different timelines and downright contradictory beliefs out there, you gotta wonder, are there any universal building blocks? Well, scholar Ninian Smart identified exactly that. Think of this list as kind of the source code for religion. You've got observances, prayer and fasting. You've got physical aspects like artifacts and holy places. And then you have that subjective element, that intensely personal, mystical experience. When you mix all of those together with mythology, organized philosophy, and ethical social rules, you basically have a complete blueprint for almost any faith on Earth.
And when we compare these beautifully structured content maps, we can actually see this blueprint in action. Looking at the primal beliefs, they focus heavily on the origins of death, sacred spaces, and the spirits of ancestors. But then on the flip side, whether you're looking at Hinduism, Buddhism, or Judaism, those same narrative traditions persist. No matter the faith, they all provide this overarching story that connects humanity directly to the cosmos, essentially telling us exactly why we're here in the first place. All right, Section 4, Morals, Society, and Leadership, focusing on how these faiths go about guiding communities. Now, we've looked at the deeply personal side of faith, but how does all of that scale up to govern entire societies? While religions obviously differ wildly in how they define a good life, almost universal moral codes started emerging all over the globe. Whether we're talking about the Ten Commandments in Judaism and Christianity, or the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism, these really concise frameworks did way more than just appease the gods. They provided absolute, vital moral guidance. They were the rulebooks that allowed massive populations to actually live peaceably together under shared laws.
However, there is definitely a complex dual nature to all of this.
because as civilizations grew more powerful, religion was frequently, and I mean frequently, deployed as a political tool. That very same spiritual cohesion that brought societies together, well, it could also be weaponized to wage war. History shows us over and over that military conquests often ended with the victors forcibly assimilating the pantheon of the defeated people. Empires were constantly supported by their deities and priestly classes, sometimes using their faith as a literal banner for conflict, persecution, or conquest. It's just a really stark reminder that these powerful systems of belief have shaped human history in ways that are both incredibly unifying but also deeply destructive.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, Modern Challenges and Conflicts, looking at science and secularism. So what exactly happens when these ancient structured belief systems collide head-on with the modern world? Well, armed with humanist philosophy and the scientific method, thinkers began questioning the validity of religion altogether. Rational, consistent cosmologies started making those ancient explanations seem, frankly, irrelevant to a lot of people, and that paved the way for entirely new worldviews. Philosophies like Marxism-Leninism even went so far as to consider religion a negative force on human development, which led directly to explicitly atheistic states. For the first time in human history, living entirely without religion actually became a widespread societal model. Yet, in spite of all that, here is a statistic that is just absolutely fascinating. Despite the massive rise of secularism, despite all our scientific explanations for the natural phenomena that used to terrify our ancestors, and in an age of totally unprecedented materialism, over 3/4 of the global population today still holds some form of religious belief. Isn't that wild? So why is that? Well, this quote from Roman Catholic priest Isaac Hecker actually suggests a pretty compelling answer. Our religious needs are the deepest. You see, religion provides something that pure science often just cannot. It satisfies a fundamental built-in psychological need. For billions of people, it remains this intensely personal awareness of the divine that gives life its very significance, its meaning, and serves as the ultimate starting point for literally all of their endeavors. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. We've seen how religion started as a way to just survive the elements, how it evolved to build and break empires, and how it still provides a deeply personal sense of meaning today. But as our modern world continues to accelerate and change at breakneck speed, what happens next? Will our deepest psychological need for these structured belief systems adapt into completely new, unseen forms of faith? Or will they eventually just fade into the background of human history? It's a massive question, and something to deeply consider. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.